welcome to another exciting episode of The Grand Debate. This is an educative, interesting, and interactive debate that you're going to come across where two colleges and universities are pitted against each other in different topics that analyze corruption, good governance, and different things that are happening in our society. I'm your moderator, Kazia. I'd like to thank TIZ, participating judges, and the media in the house, and also our universities that have joined us today. National Institute of Public Education, NIPA, represented by Richard and Kangwa. Welcome.
Thank you.
And also LEVY MWANAWASA Medical University, represented by Stephen and Evans.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, we've got some medical people in the field who are going to be debating some political issues, but you see, good governance affects each and every one of us, and the universities, irrespective of what they're studying, they're still students and youths that are interested in what's happening in Zambia. Our topic for today will be, do you think law enforcement agencies can do better to fight corruption? When we come back from the break, our students will take up their positions in the proposing or opposing motion to let us know what they think about this subject. Welcome back to the Grand Debate, and of course we're joined by participating universities, NIPA and LEVY MWANAWASA Medical Universities. So can the proposing team remain standing and the opposing team sit down? So our topic today is, do you think law enforcement agencies can do better to fight corruption? On August 27th, 2009, the government of the Republic of Zambia launched a national anti-corruption policy and strategic document aimed at providing a framework for preventing and combating corruption in a comprehensive, coordinated, inclusive, and substantial manner. The significant milestone marked a candid acknowledgement that previous efforts at legal and institutional reforms have had limited impact on the prevalence of corruption. So we hope that today you'll be able to expand on that topic. You get the opposing motion, and remember, this is a fair playing ground. There will be no interruption of the other speaker. Thank you. Who will be opening for us? Okay, thank you, Mr. Richard.
It is indeed a tremendous honor to be given an opportunity to stand before you, the highly respected, distinguished faculties. But before I move any further, allow me just simply say protocol has been observed. My names are Richard Mwale. Ladies and gentlemen, the bond of quotation this morning states, and I quote, that law enforcement agencies can do better to fight corruption, to which we firmly stand in full proposition. Assembled intellectuals, the key words derived from the motion are law enforcement, which simply means a government agency that enforces law. Members of the chamber, we as the proposition say that law enforcement agencies can do better due to the following reasons. I'll be brief and factual. Number one, assembled intellectuals, we feel that if we train the Zambian police services to investigate corruption, we will fight corruption. What do I mean? The role of the police services in our country is only to receive complaints, then take to Anti-Corruption Commission. But we see that this delays and takes a lot of time. Assembled intellectuals, we therefore move the motion and say that police service should be trained to investigate corruption so that they can investigate where complaints come in, they investigate, and they investigate at that point and arrest people who do corrupt practices, thereby reducing. Assembled intellectuals, as that is not enough, allow me to simply say that it can also do better when it improves the economy. Assembled intellectuals, we have seen that the reason why people are involved in corrupt practices is because that the economy is not okay. Now, if we improve the standard of living in our country, it will simply mean that people will have adequate enough not to engage in corruption. Members of the chamber, as that is not enough, allow me to also state that law enforcement agencies can do better if they reduce powers that government officials have. Assembled intellectuals, if one person has got supreme power, chances of having corruption are high in our country. Now, assembled intellectuals, if we decentralize power, where a lot of people are involved in decision-making in our country, that can reduce corruption in our country. Furthermore, assembled intellectuals, allow me to also state that just like the way paying tax in our country is a mandate, just like the way paying NAPSA is a mandate by each and every company, we firmly move the motion and say that each and every company should have an anti-corruption officer stationed. Now, if we have an anti-corruption officer stationed, assembled intellectuals, this can reduce corruption. We do agree that the integrity committees that have been formed in companies, but these integrity committees are internal people that come from that company. Compromisation is very easy. Now, assembled intellectuals, if we have officers coming from the Anti-Corruption Commission, put in both parastatals, private companies, and government institutions, we will fight corruption, thereby doing better. Furthermore, assembled intellectuals, we can also do better if we educate people on the Public Disclosure Act. The Public Disclosure Act is an act that protects people that disclose information, whistleblowers. Now, assembled intellectuals, the reason why most people are not reporting corruption in our country is because that they have no idea that there's a Public Disclosure Act that protects them. Most of them feel so scared to go and report of being beaten, of being dealt with, of being fired once they report corruption. But assembled intellectuals, we do believe that if people know they've got full information of the act that protects them, a lot of people will report corruption practices and thereby reduce. Assembled intellectuals, as that is not enough, lastly, allow me to state that in 2009, the anti-corruption policy strategy was formed. Now, we have seen that most of the things were not put into practice. We saw that the Anti-Corruption Commission policy strategy focused on 3 lines. Number 1, the legal part. Number 2, the social part and the institutional part. Now, assembled intellectuals, when we talk about the legal part, we propose that we have more stringent legal measures. Just like the way a person taking drugs is arrested and jailed for so many years, people should also be jailed for so many years for corrupt practices. Thereby, this can reduce and instill fear in people. Institutional-wise, assembled intellectuals, allow me to state that if we have integrity committees that are put where people are educated each and every time, if we have integrity committees that fight and teach people on transparency and accountability on corruption, we do believe that as an agency, we can do better. Lastly, assembled intellectuals, on the social aspect, we have got chiefs, we have got members of parliament, we have got councillors. If the government agencies can do well to educate chiefs on the dangers of corruption, and these chiefs take the information in the villages, in the constituencies, in all provinces, where people can have enough information on corruption, we can do better. Allow me to state that thank you, all protocol.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Greetings to you all, ladies and gentlemen, once more. All protocol is observed. Kampamba, Kangwa are my names. Ladies and gentlemen, the motion under discussion states, do you think law enforcement agencies can do better to fight corruption? Ladies and gentlemen, we are proposing to this motion. And the reason we are proposing to this motion is because the first thing is the government should improve education. Ladies and gentlemen, you agree with me that there is less sensitization about this corruption. A lot of people, or rather my village, my grandmother in Chinsali does not even know what corruption is. That's why what we are trying to say is that the government should try to improve more education so that people are aware of the bad, or people are aware of why they should stay away from this corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, my other point is reduce discretionary powers. Ladies and gentlemen, you agree with me that we have what we call as the Public Protector Office. You all agree with me that very few people are aware of it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll quote from the Constitution, which is in Article 243 of the Zambian Amendment Constitution of 2016. The Constitution said that this Public Protector Act should be in each and every province. But yet, what do we see? It only has one office here in Lusaka. Ladies and gentlemen, if someone has been discriminated, let's say in Chinsali, how do they travel all the way to here to Lusaka just to come and report these matters? That's why what we are trying to say is that they should at least reduce discretionary powers, because a lot of people in authorities, ladies and gentlemen, have a lot of powers, which makes it very easy for them to do what? To make decisions that are so unfair to these people. My third point is it's a criminal offense. Ladies and gentlemen, you all agree with me that corruption is a criminal offense, and as such, it should be treated as such. Ladies and gentlemen, how many people are arrested as soon as they commit murder? A lot. So what we are trying to say is that the government should at least put about policies that make these people that do corruptive activities be arrested there and then as soon as they commit them. Ladies and gentlemen, my other point is reduce the long process. You all agree with me that when the police receive a complaint, ladies and gentlemen, they have to write a report to the Anti-Corruption Commission, which is a very long process. What did the Anti-Corruption Commission do? They have to investigate that matter. Ladies and gentlemen, you agree with me that it will take them weeks for them to give a response. So what we are trying to say is that when someone commits a corrupt activity, they should be arrested there and then, so as to reduce the what? The long process. Ladies and gentlemen, the other point is, as I stated in the second point, that there is a Public Protector Act that is here in Lusaka, and yet very few people are aware of it. What does that mean? Very few people have enough knowledge of this. Very few people, ladies and gentlemen, are even aware that there is this Public Protector Act. So what we are trying to say is that if the government at least tries to improve or to enforce these solutions that we've brought to them, at least they will reduce, or they will actually reduce corruption. I rest my case.
Thank you so much. A mass of appreciations to whom it is due, and the protocol be highly observed. The motion stipulates, as I articulate, do you think law enforcement agencies can do better to fight corruption? Now, we all need to understand that there has been a certain standard set from constitutional reviews under which law enforcement agencies operate. But should we say these law enforcement agencies, based on that standard, can do better? And we as the opposition were saying they cannot do better, provided we are subject to the same system. Corruption has affected our entire system, starting from the judicial system, going down to the police, the public services, land administration, tax administration, customs administration, public procurement, natural resources, legislation, civil society, and we can give practical examples of what levels and what kinds of corruptions are exhibited by these kinds of departments. Now, we as the oppositions have taken keen interest to research on the major key agencies that fight corruption in our country. That is the Zambia Police and the Anti-Corruption Commission. Now, you agree with me that the Zambia Police have been indicated to be the most corrupt officers. To generalize it, the police are indicated to be corrupt individuals. This can be noticed from the police that work at traffic stations. Instead of someone following the law when there's an offender, they try by all means to liaise with that offender and pay them so that they get money from them in form of bribery. Now, such kind of systems, do you think these kinds of systems can do better to fight corruption? Not only that, it is evident, very evident, that the costs or the penalties of the people paying road tax or the people that are working at tax roads, it's very high. So as a result, if the government should reduce on the fees or the penalties that are given to these individuals, it will also be better. Because take, for instance, if I was to commit a crime and I'm to pay 500 kwacha, and then a police officer tells me to pay a 200 for that offense, do you think I'll fail to remove the 200 kwacha to pay for bribery? I will not, definitely. And as a result, we will not be able to fight corruption. Not only that, if we look at other forms of petty corruption that occur, you come to discover that in acquisition of certain land and other services, you come to discover that our citizens, they can no longer abide to the laws. Reason being is because these laws, they are not sufficient enough to curb corruption. As a result, you look at the person that are working at the topmost, the Inspector General, who is appointed by the President himself. Do you think that an institution that does not function autonomically is able to fight the system provided it is corrupt? It cannot. And as a result, subject to the person who has appointed you into power, and then when they perform an act, a corrupt act, you have no mandate or power to go and arrest them because you'll be afraid that they might chase you or revoke your job. So we are saying, as an opposition, law enforcement agencies cannot do better to fight corruption. Thank you.
Thank you so much. May I highly say all protocol observed. Riding on the motion that my colleague has already stipulated, want to argue again is that the bodies that are mandated to fight corruption in our country cannot work effectively due to the reasons of some of the reasons from the agencies that my colleague has listed. I think one of the major things that we can look at when you look at the Anti-Corruption Commission in itself, it's a very good and powerful body that lacks in efficiency to prosecute the cases and to make people answerable for the cases that they are found that they are found guilty of. All they do is that they just make recommendations and take reports the next to the next body, and then we start along the way. There's a lot of bureaucracy that happens along the way, and as a result, you find it's really hard to fight these issues of corruption when it comes to the bodies that are mandated to fight corruption. Another thing, when you talk about, you mentioned the issue of the police and bribes, and we should not even just narrow it down to only the police, but we find that even when it comes to custom, to custom institutions, for instance, like ZRA, when it comes to payment of tax and the clearance of other stuff, you find that there are a lot of in-between middlemen that are involved, and you find that at the end of the day, we will fail to fight corruption because we have a lot of people that are paying bribes, and instead of paying the actual amount they're supposed to pay, they'll just remove something that is going to benefit the person, and at the end of the day, the process is distorted at the end of the day. And also when it comes to kickbacks in awarding some tenders and contracts, you find that even institutions or bodies or even just organizations that are not well established to carry out certain projects, they'll get the projects and then go ahead and implement them even without having the required manpower and experience that might be needed in awarding those tenders, or because they've paid some sort of kickbacks. And also abuse of office is also another thing. People take advantage of the offices that they are in, and as a result, they fail to handle the issues that are sent in their offices adequately because there's someone who's twisting them, so it becomes a challenge also. The other thing is also when it comes to the law is not clear on the maximum. It's not clear. It does not stipulate on disclosure of properties when it comes to people who are holding on to these offices. So with those few remarks, may I be allowed to sit?
So we're discussing, do you think law enforcement agencies can do better to fight corruption? We've got a proposing team and opposing team. They gave us our opening statements, and now we have rebuttals coming from both teams. May NIPA go through with their rebuttal first?
The motion under discussion states, law enforcement agencies can do better to fight corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to give rebuttals that were given by the opposition. The opposition stated that the Zambia police is very corrupt. However, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to state that in this shoe, the Zambia police is not left out, because the Zambia police is just like an institution, just like a clinic or any other private company. They are not immune to corruption. There are also corrupt people in there. But however, what we're trying to say, even as we stated in our first point, that we need to educate the Zambia police on the dangers of corruption. We need to educate the Zambian police on how to investigate corruption. When we do so, they will know the dangers of corruption and refrain from corruption. They also stated on various weaknesses that these agencies have. For example, the last speaker talked about the Zambian Public Procurement Authority on the bidding process. But however, we have seen that the Zambia Public Procurement Authority, as it stands, has brought about what we call the open competitive bidding. It's a new process that has come in, but we also propose that they can still do better, okay, if the open competitive bidding is also brought about to the public through newspapers, through TV, especially when they're dealing with public limited companies. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow more assembled intellectuals, allow me to state that they also talked about how people do not abide. Okay, now, in the fight of corruption, Government agencies are agencies that are formed by government, meaning that they're still government. However, people are not left out when it comes, they're also part of the government, okay? The government agencies have done enough, okay? But what we're saying that they can still do better. But however, we should not leave the fight of corruption to government agencies. In as much as they try to do better, ladies and gentlemen, if people are not helping them to fight corruption, their works will be null and void. What am I trying to say? We as people, we've got the mandate to fight corruption, okay? So if someone looks at a corrupt practice and does not come open to the Anti-Corruption Commission to report, that simply means that it will make it very difficult for the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Zambian Police, the Drug Enforcement Commission, and other law agencies to perform their duties very well. Furthermore, assembled intellectuals, as I said, on the aspect of the people, I mentioned that we have got the Public Disclosure Act, okay? But what we said that the Public Disclosure Act is an act that was established through the Anti-Corruption Commission. But we're saying that most people have not been reporting because they're scared to be beaten after reporting. So we proposed that they can do better by preaching to people on the importance of the Public Order Act. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Allow me to read from an article, Risk and Compliance Portal, that is powered by GAN. It says, companies contend with a high risk of corruption, particularly petty corruption. When dealing with Zambia's police, the government in 2017 under ICS indicated that corruption among police officers is very common. Now, in effect, it has caused half of the population to term police officers as corrupt. So what we are trying to say is, as long as we have people losing trust in the police officers, and it is practical that most of these people that have been in contact with the Zambia police or the police services, they have at least paid a bribe. That is evidence enough. We can count on a ratio of 10 people. If you were to ask those 10 people, you find 3 people that were in contact or 7 people that were in contact with the police might have paid a bribe. And this happens at different levels. So then if we are still living with such kind of systems, how best do we think corruption can be fought? It cannot be fought. Then furthermore, we talk about the public, supply and demand. In a case where I need to obtain a certain good, but then there's a lot of red tape, unnecessary long procedures. As a result, because an individual might not be patient enough, what do? They'll indulge themselves into corrupt practices to attain those services. So how best are these law enforcement agencies fighting corruption if at all there are these unnecessary long procedures that incur when one tries to procure certain goods or certain services? That's a question that you should answer.
The only lady and myself in the institution.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. Now, I would love to make this important point. Ladies and gentlemen, the opposition talked of the police involving themselves in these corruptive activities. This is why we Corruption Commission should stand independently as a body. That way, even if there are corruptive activities from the police, it is very easy for someone to go and report without fear of them losing their job, because the anti-corruption is a body on its own, standing independently. But so long as the Anti-Corruption Commission will have force or influence from the government, it will be very difficult for them to run these things. That's why we're trying to say that, yes, they are working, but then they can do the following things to make sure that we ratify corruption completely. The other point is improve education. The reason why we are focusing much on improving education is because when a child is taught at a younger age to have personal integrity, so what we are trying to say is that, yes, they have done enough, but let them improve the education sector. That way children will be able to grow up with the mindset of corruption being an immoral thing. Thank you.
um, okay, I quote, corruption is pervasive in Zambian government procurement, presenting companies operating in the sector with high risk. Business report that bribes and irregular payments are common when bidding for public contracts. Almost a third of companies indicate they expect to give gifts to secure government contracts. And that's what we're saying, that you see, these bodies, the way they stand, in as much as there are these bodies that are established to make sure that we fight this, we fight corruption, it gets back to individuals themselves, the individuals that are holding on to those offices. They are abusing their offices to gain to gain favors, and also for their own personal gains. That's why, in as much as there is this policy that allows for open competitive bidding, it still gets back to the people who are sitting on that table to discuss and decide who's going to get the contract and also is going to get the tender at the end of the day. And then the other thing that you need to put in context is that, public disclosure. The Public Disclosure Act, I think that my colleague had quoted earlier. In that act, public officers or people holding on to those public offices, they are not subjected to disclose any of their financial financial status. So at the end of the day, it becomes an academic exercise, in as much as we have an act that protects the public, but the act in itself is not clear and does not stipulate on the parameters on where one is supposed to operate within the confinement of that law. So at the end of the day, it becomes an academic exercise, and we're going to have bodies and laws that are not going to be implemented as they are supposed to.
All right, thank you. Well, you're watching the grand debate, and as TSI would just like to remind you that we do not support any political party or candidate. Ours is to ensure the fight against corruption is fought on all levels, especially the governance system. During the course of these weeks, you'll be getting to see a lot more of these debates by different universities and colleges, as live access brings you more intriguing topics. Join us in the next round as we come up with my favorite part, which is the cross-examination, which is really a game of wits. The opposing and proposing does not know what the other team will ask them, and they will have to answer this question in not more than 1 minute. Join us after the break.
Corruption has been one of the causes of poverty in Zambia, and it has a negative effect on the domestic market.
In a corrupt society, anything can be bought for a price. The power is yours. Stop this corruption because it has negative effects. Corruption is one of the causes of poverty and inequality in Zambia. It hurts our communities. Corruption reduces our access to public services, including healthcare and education. Corruption robs us of our opportunities in life. Asking for sexual favors is a form of corruption. Women and girls are particularly vulnerable to it.
Have you experienced something similar? Share your story on shareyourstory.org.zm. Follow #ExposeCorruptionZambia. This message is brought to you by Transparency International Zambia, TIZ.
Welcome back to the grand debate, and we have had NIPA and LEVY MWANAWASA Medical University at it discussing the topic, do you think law enforcement agencies can do better to fight corruption? I'll just like to remind you again of the rules. This is equal opportunity ground, and there will be no interruptions when your speaker or the fellow speaker is up giving their point. You will be given 1 minute to answer the cross-examination thrown to you by the other team. Everything else that you have talked about, your documents, everything will be submitted to the judges, and at the end of the day, we'll be able to see who will be the winner. Right now, our able judges are following this program, and they will be judging this segment as well. So who will be going first? No takers. You can ask first. Please take your seat as they ask their first question.
Yes. I think I have a very simple and straightforward question. If our colleagues are saying that this body is mandated to fight corruption, are working effectively and they're efficient and they can do better, the question that we have is that from the financial intelligence reports that we've been having, how many cases have been highlighted there, and then from those cases, how many have been prosecuted? If we're going to say that this body.
I hope you can answer that within a minute.
Simple, as I stated in my first point, that's the reason why we want the policemen to be trained to be investigators so that they can do the work without involving a lot of bureaucracy. Thereby, we can handle a lot of cases and like leaving them to anti-corruption commission alone.
Thank you.
You talked of how there is bureaucracy in the way things are done. But when you look at the 2009 anti-corruption policy, we saw that this involved different stakeholders from different places. Don't you think that if there are a lot of people that are involved in fighting corruption, that will give them an opportunity to know what corruption is indeed about, for them to handle it and preach the gospel on the dangers of corruption?
Would you like to? You didn't understand it? You'd like him to rephrase it? Can you please rephrase the question?
They talked about bureaucracy in the handling of the investigation on how they move. But we are saying that the Anti-Corruption Commission policy brought different stakeholders together. The essence of bringing different stakeholders together was to ensure that each and everyone has a know-how on what corruption is. But what I'm trying to say, since you firmly talked against involving different agencies, don't you think that if almost different agencies are involved, don't you think that it will be very easy for them to know what corruption is about and come up with a concrete decision on how they can fight it?
Thank you so much. My statement was that in as much as we have a lot of bodies that are mandated in fighting corruption, what we need to do is we need to give power to the bodies and give them the full autonomy, because at the end of the day, DEC ends at, an anti-corruption commission only ends at investigating, and then they take the report to the next to the next person who is the public prosecuting authority, those other bodies that are mandated to prosecute him. What we want is, at the end of the day, immediately DEC is done with the investigation, or immediately anti-corruption is done with the investigation, the bodies that are mandated in making sure that those people are prosecuted, they should act immediately and not go through another process that is also another bureaucratic process. What we want is that immediately the DEC or Anti-Corruption Commission or the police hands over the case to say, okay, the court, this is what we found this person guilty of. There and then the person needs to be prosecuted, not going through another bureaucratic process. That's what we're saying.
Next question.
Yes, and before I ask my question, and just to add on, we all know that the Anti-Corruption Commission, the leader of the Anti-Corruption Commission, and the leader or the person who is at the top of the police, these people are appointed by the president. And by virtue of one being appointed by the president, it is obvious that they have to work in line with the president. But then if corruption, here's the question, if corruption is to occur at high levels of corruption, and you have appointed an individual to work for you, how best do you think they can fight corruption if at all you, the person that appointed them, is in forefront of fighting corruption?
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, what the opposition is trying to do is just simply agree to what we are saying. What we are saying is they have done better, but they can do better by reducing the authority or the power that these people in government have. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll use his example like he stated. Let's say the government of the Republic of Zambia is the one that appoints the investigator general. And then the president of the Republic of Zambia involves himself in a corrupt activity. It is very easy for them to favor him because he's the one that appoints them in power. That's why what we're trying to say is that they can actually do better by limiting or reducing the power that they've placed on these people in government. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. You have a question, last question.
So your question is? if you are saying, or if you're trying to say that we vest a lot of power on the Anti-Corruption Commission, of what progress will it have if one of them commits an offense?
Well, I think in every organization, there's a way you handle your issues internally, such that in the case where the director general or the prosecutor general is found guilty, who's supposed to prosecute him and who's supposed to prosecute him or her? You understand the point? So at the end of the day, in as much as we are going to put up the measure of saying, no, we want to make sure that the Anti-Corruption Commission is independent and it's autonomous and it's able to carry out its mandate, and where need be, it should prosecute. The due diligence should also be done when its officers are also found wanting. There should be a body and there should be a process of prosecuting the top officials of the Anti-Corruption Commission if they are found wanting.
All right, thank you. Well, you've gotten to hear both sides of LEVY MWANAWASA Medical University and also National Institution for Public Administration NIPA debate their issues. We'll be coming back later after the debate or the break and find out what the judges thought about their presentation, the documentation that has been sent to them to support their motions, and we'll find out who today's winner will be and who will take the trophy. Join us after the break.
NIPA and LEVY MWANAWASA Medical University, both teams did not understand the topic at hand. Therefore, more than 80% of the arguments has significant flaws. LEVY MWANAWASA did not put up much effort in their dress code, and research and preparation was not adequate for both teams. Thank you.
This debate was a bit confusing for me because in the beginning I was not sure if the proposers were opposing or the opposers were proposing. So I do feel that some of the arguments made by the proposers seem to be for the opposing team and the other way around. But one thing that I did pick up is that both teams did not adequately criticize or analyze what the term law enforcement agency means. And I do feel that because they didn't interrogate the question that much, both teams, in a sense, lacked convincing arguments in their debate. But I think the salvageable winners for me in this debate are those who are proposing to the arguments, despite the teams not critically analyzing the debate topic and the key terms there.
Welcome back to the grand debate. And if you've been following this exciting episode and also topic, I'm sure you can't wait, like I can't wait to find out who the emerging winner will be. We'd like to thank again Mr. Zonde for coming through from TIZ.
Thank you.
Welcome. You've been following the debates?
Yeah, very
and
interesting.
he usually comes in with the news and what the able-bodied judges thought about this debate today.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So let me go through the comments of the judges who have been watching the entire debate. So let me start with the first one. Both teams may have misunderstood the topic during the first round, but the proposals or the proposition seems to have picked up later on. Then the second comment, both teams should have done better with research and presentation of evidence. The third comment, the opposition could have done better in terms of dress code. The fourth comment, both teams do not fully understand the key terms, example, law enforcement agency. So after a very difficult deliberation with the other judges, the conclusion was that NIPA has won this particular round of debates.
Okay. So we'll start with Eddie, if you'd like to give us your vote of thanks.
Thank you so much. I think it was a wonderful time that we had, so educative. And congratulations to NIPA for the victory. And to TIZ as well, thank you so much for inviting us here. I think it's looking at LEVY MWANAWASA Medical University being a new institution. we are getting exposed to different opportunities, and we hope that next time when we come, we'll do better, and we'll be taking the trophy home. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And of course, our winners.
We want to say thank you to the organizers for giving us an opportunity to participate in this event. It's a very educative event because in the process of researching, you get to learn a lot of things. And even the people that are watching out there, corruption is real. It's something that has affected our country in different aspects, political, economic, and other aspects. So even as we debate, like for myself, I've learned we should be pioneers that fighting corruption. If we are all involved, we can fight corruption, not only leaving it to Transparency International Zambia and Corruption Commission. We all have to come on board because we are part of and parcel of the epidemic of corruption that has affected us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please step forward and collect the trophy.
Congratulations for winning this particular episode of the Grand Bet.
Thank you.
How, Mr. Sunday, these episodes keep on getting more and more, more and more interesting, especially the cross-examination. Well, you've been watching the Grand Debate, and remember, it could be your university, your college that will be on this floor debating prominent issues that affect us. Keep watching the Grand Debate as we bring to you another episode next week with another university and college. Congratulations, and continue watching.
Transparency International Zambia is the leading anti-corruption crusader, contributing to Zambia's development based on a culture of integrity, transparency, and accountability through the promotion of good governance and zero tolerance to corruption. For more information, follow us on our Facebook page, Transparency International Zambia, or email info.tizambia.org.zm.